Okay, in this video we're going to review a little bit of chapter 7.5 about trapezoids, which we did previously, and we're going to look at kites. So just a quick review of what a trapezoid is. One, and again, these are the notes. You should have most of these notes in Schoology under 7.5. Some of the examples might be slightly different, but most of them should be the same. And we might skip a couple of them that you have in your notes that we've already done in previous day. So what is a trapezoid? Well, a trapezoid is not a parallelogram. Okay, so that's one thing to note. It's not a parallelogram. If you look down at the bottom here, it asks that question, is a trapezoid a parallelogram? No, it's not. It does not have two pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. It only has one pair of parallel sides. And the other thing, it is a quadrilateral though. So it does have angles on the interior that add up to 360 degrees. If we are talking about an isosceles trapezoid, basically what we're looking at is a trapezoid. So we'd have one pair of opposite sides that are parallel. So if those two sides are parallel to each other. And then we'd have one pair of congruent sides. So the blue are congruent to each other. In addition to that, on the next slide it'll explain this a little bit more, but it also has with an isosceles that the base angles are congruent. So this angle that I've highlighted in green is congruent to this angle that's highlighted in green. And this angle up here that I've highlighted in yellow is congruent to this angle that I've highlighted in yellow. And if you add up all four of those angles on the interior, they will add up to 360 degrees. Again, that explains basically what we just talked about on the last slide. In addition to that, it also notes that isosceles trapezoids have diagonals that are congruent to each other, in addition to their base angles being the same. If you look at this example, we have one angle that is 85 degrees, and it's an isosceles trapezoid. They want us to find the rest of the angles. Well, if angle L is 85, angle K is also 85. And if it's an isosceles trapezoid, that means whatever J is, M is the same. So you could think about this two different ways. You could think all four angles together add up to equal 360 degrees, or you could say that the consecutive angles add up to 180. Either way, so if we think about it as all four angles adding up to 360 degrees, we could say, all right, so we have 2x's, 2x plus 85 and 85 is 170. Those would add up to equal 360 degrees. If we subtract 170 from both sides, we'd get 2x equals 280. Check that, doesn't equal 280. It equals 190. So if we subtract 170 from both sides, we get 190. And if we divide both sides by 2, we get x equals 95. The other way to think about it is the consecutive angles add up to 180, which would mean x plus 85 equals 180. If we subtract 85 from both sides, we get 95. Either way, we get the same answer. The trapezoid mid-segment theorem says that the mid-segment, which goes from the midpoint of one side to the midpoint of the other side, is just the average of the two bases. So you'd add the bases together and divide by 2. So in this example, we'll call our mid-segment MN, we'll call that x. So x is going to be the average of the two bases. Our two bases are 12 and 28. So if we add 12 plus 28, average means we're going to divide those by 2. We'd get x equals 40 divided by 2, which equals 20. But let's add another little example down here. What if I had a trapezoid that looked like this? Let's see here. If I had, here's my trapezoid. This. It's not an isosceles trapezoid or anything, it's just a trapezoid. And I have in red here is going to be my mid-segment. Okay, and if I said that this base up on the top is 2x minus 2, the base on the bottom is 4x plus 6. And my mid-segment in the middle is x plus 12. If I wanted to figure out what x is, I would have to average my bases. What that means is I'm going to add my bases together and divide by 2. So I'm going to add my bases together, 2x minus 2 plus 4x plus 6. And I need to divide all of that by 2. And what it's going to equal is the length of my mid-segment, which is x plus 12. If I combine my like terms up on the numerator up here, I get 6x plus 4, still divided by 2, equals x plus 12. Easiest way to solve this equation from here is I need to get rid of that divided by 2, so I'm going to multiply everything on both sides by 2. I'm left with 6x plus 4 over on the left, and I have 2x plus 24 on the right. If I go ahead and I solve that out, if I subtract 2x from both sides, I get 4x plus 4 equals 24. If I subtract 4, I get 4x equals 20, so x equals 5. So notice what I did was I just took my bases and I added them together. So I had a base of 2x minus 2, 4x plus 6, added them together and divided by 2 to average them, and they equal the length of my mid-segment. And then it's just knowing how to solve the equation from there. Now we're going to talk a little bit about kites. And a kite is what you would think, like what you would fly in the sky somewhere on a nice, windy, sunny, beautiful day. Kites have 2 pairs of congruent sides, and their diagonals are perpendicular. In addition to that, they have 1 pair of opposite angles that are congruent. So if you notice in the diagrams, it is not all the sides that are congruent, it's just 2 pairs of sides, and they are consecutive sides that are congruent, not opposite sides. And the angles that are congruent in them are also opposite of each other. So let's just take a look at this example here. It wants us to find the measure of angle D and F in the kite shown. Well, A, it's a quadrilateral, which means all the angles added together are going to equal to up to 360. B, angle D and angle F are congruent to each other because, as a kite, the 1 pair of opposite angles are congruent. Well, if angle E is 115 and G is 73, those are not congruent, which means D and F are both going to be the same thing. So whatever D is, we'll call that X, and F will be the same thing. So if we add those together, we get X plus the angles they gave us, all add together to equal 360 because it's a quadrilateral. We'd get 2x plus 188 equals 360. If we subtract 188 from both sides, we get 2x equals 172. And if we divide both sides by 2, we get x equals 86. So angle D and angle F are both 86 degrees. Okay, so here we have a kite. Well, a kite is a quadrilateral, and it tells us we have an angle that's 3x, an angle that's 75, an angle that's 90, and an angle that's 120. They want us to find the value of x. Well, those 4 angles, all added together, are going to add up to 360 because it's a quadrilateral. So we'd have 3x plus 75 plus 90 plus 120 equals 360. When we combine our like terms on the left, we get 3x plus 285 equals 360. If we subtract 285 from both sides, we get 3x equals 75, x equals 25. So if x equals 25, the 2 angles that are congruent to each other are going to be 75 and 75, because if you put, go back up here and put 25 in for x, you get another angle that's 75. So you're going to have a 75 degree, 90, and 120. Thank you very much. Good luck.